And there we go. So welcome again to another wonderful photo critique night. We've got some pretty cool images that we're going to be going through, and I'll just show them very quickly. The advantage of critique night is the opportunity to kind of just submit images that you think you'd like some feedback on. I'm going to give you my opinion, but quite frankly, critiques are something which anybody can critique anything. So the question is, do you agree with it, and is it reflecting what you want to do as an artist? So I'll just give you my perspective, and really these are an excuse to sit down, chat, look at some nice photos, and also an opportunity to see how one could improve other people's photos. So I'll be doing a little stuff on Lightroom as we go along. But the intention is not to show you or teach you Lightroom. There's separate sessions for that. But you'll get a feeling for how I attack things and how I move, through Lightroom to do some of these different edits and so on and so forth. So there's some beautiful, beautiful work here tonight, and it'll be a joy to kind of walk through all of this. So we'll step through the pictures one at a time. They're sequenced 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and one person actually submitted 5. So what we'll be doing is going through all the 1s, all the 2s, all the 3s, and we'll cut out at 9 o'clock. We'll cut out after 2 hours. So we'll do as many as we can, but hopefully we can go through all of them and be done when we're done. So actually, I just realized as I was going through all the pictures, I wasn't sharing the screen, was I? Let me do that again. That was very silly. So I was supposed to be showing these images as I was talking. In any case, so every one of these is different because the pictures that are submitted are always different, and what we end up doing is just looking at each one individually and just making a couple of comments. Now you're all muted, but if you hit the space bar temporarily, then you can unmute yourself and offer some additional comments, rebut anything I say. I mean, there's nothing I say that's gospel, that's for sure. And then from there, what we do is we'll move on to the next picture when everyone's had a chance to say. So as I introduce the photo, if you happen to be the author and you want to give us a little bit of background on the photo, then by all means, please do. And that way we can sort of get the maker's perspective. So I will hit D, which is develop module, and whenever I hit something on the keyboard, you'll notice something at the very bottom of the screen, like I'm going to go into R for crop mode, for instance, and you can see what key that I'm hitting. So I'll try to remember to specify my key, but at the bottom of the keyboard you'll see the keystrokes that I'm doing, and if I'm hitting something on the side, you'll see where my mouse is, so you'll get a sense for what I'm doing as I go along. Sound good? Everybody happy? All right. Spontaneous burst of silence. Okay, thumbs up from somebody. All right, so here's our first submission. Lovely blue jay. The images are nice. The bird is perched very nicely. There's a lot of beautiful negative space over here, so it's very nice because the bird's got a place to look into. Negative space gives the bird a place to go, to fly to, a place to look. There's a virtual line that's formed by the eye of the bird, and so we look at where it's coming from. So the picture's nicely balanced. There's the tree on one side, the bird on the other. There's this thing that has texture, whatever, and the bird, by the way, is very sharp. It's nice, it's crisp, it's very well exposed, so that's really good, and the focus is good. This branch over here is a little distracting to my eye, so I've really got two centers of interest. I've got the bird and the branch. So for no other reason than to remove the distraction, I'd be tempted to crop this image a little bit. And I don't know if I need that much negative space. So the focus is certainly the bird and whatever. So I went and I did a little bit of cropping here, and I kind of came up with this type of thing. This is a square format that'd be great for Instagram. You might want to have it formatted a little differently if you want to put it into a print. You want to maybe make it an 8 by 10, maybe give it that kind of a format. So that's an 8 by 10, and if you want to give it, a slightly different format, 5 by 7 is slightly different again. So really ask yourself what it is that you're trying to do in terms of the overall image. But this still has lots of negative space. The distraction's gone. The bird is nicely perched. You've still got the tree giving it some context and some ambiance. So anyways, I'm not sure who submitted this one. Is
It's
our maker
me,
here?
Debbie.
Debbie, yes. Hi, Debbie.
Yeah.
And
So I'll
so,
tell you why I left it
yeah, go
the
for it.
way it was. It was because of the sun in the bottom left corner.
Ah, you like this bright spot. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, so
I
I
mean,
mean,
it
I
doesn't
might be
have to be
tempted
as
to just
much.
copy that over. If you wanted to just move the sun over, you could certainly do that.
Yeah.
You could make it. There's still a little bit of sun showing up here, a little bit,
Yeah.
and I mean, I could cheat. I have been known to cheat. Come on, and radial filter, and and if I want to, just add a little bit of sun there at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you could do. I'm not sure if this. I like the sun at the bottom though. Usually we're used to seeing stuff at the top. I don't know if you like it better up there or not. Now you get two light sources, so I might not do that either. But anyways, I mean, but I like the fact that you had a very specific purpose, and I think that's the important thing. Is when somebody crops it a certain way or does something, they've got an intention as an artist. And so, my perspective is worth junk. I mean, it's really a matter of understanding the rules of composition and applying them. And if you've got something at the bottom right, bottom, what is it, left, as you're saying here, and you're seeing that as a light source, and it's guiding your eye from the light source to the bird, then by all means, do that. You can probably still get rid of the distraction this way as well. And now you've still got your bright sun. But anyways, I mean, the question is, what do you want to convey as an artist, and to help the user, or the user rather, I'm into my computer science mode, help the viewer of eye flow through the image the way you'd like them to. So
And the other question, I guess, would be if you flipped it.
so that's a good one. I'm going to be flipping a couple of photos today. So this is actually kind of powerful too. Our eyes tend to travel from left to right in our culture, in the North American
Hmm.
culture. So because that's the way we read. So this is interesting. This creates in my mind the leading line coming in. The tree
Yeah.
leads you to the bird, and the bird's vision sort of guides you out into the blue yonder. And now the sun actually, in my mind, is more dominant. This bright sunlight is here, and gives the bird some sort of balance. So I actually like it flipped. I mean, you guys can decide.
Yeah, I do for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, definitely. So the name of the game here is experiment, try different things, and you'll be seeing me play with a couple of things as I go along here, and maybe a little clarity, maybe a little bit of contrast, maybe that, and it's a bunch of maybes, and let your eyes and your gut decide what to do. So thanks for submitting that. And so here we have another one, end of winter, and is the maker here? I see him on my list here, but he's not speaking up, so that's fine. All right. So a couple of people out walking, wandering through the winter wonderland. So it's kind of nice. There's some interesting detail in here when I look at it. Sort of a little one with a bunting bag, which is very cute. Clearly, the picture is nice and sharp, so it's nice. My eye kind of flows to see the people, and then I kind of wondering where they're going. My eye kind of follows this path over here, and then kind of I see this junk kind of off on the far right hand side, and going, oh, what's that? Unless it's part of the story. I mean, maybe the people are walking towards I think it's a playground or something like that. So, but it's not clear, what the storyline is or where the image is going here. So it's a question of what is it that you're trying to convey. I mean, one approach to this might be to zoom in on the people for sure, and just make it about them and them walking. You could turn it into a really nice panorama. Like this tree has detail at the top right, but it's so far removed from the people, and it's so big compared to the people. I mean, is the story about the tree or is the story about the people? I'm not sure. I might be tempted to maybe, you can turn this into a nice little, get rid of some of that distraction there. You can almost turn that into a sort of a panorama type of image. You know, so that could be the story. So I wasn't sure where the maker was going with this one, and if you're not if you're looking at an image and you're not quite sure what the maker had in mind, chances are it's not as successful as it could have been. There's a lot of distractions at the bottom with the snow here. I mean, that can certainly be cleaned up, and you can kind of get rid of some of that stuff. And you try to get rid of, whoops, that was dumb. Well, let's just move that over here and grab some of that. And so, I mean, you can try to eliminate some of this and make it a little less dark. I'm not sure I'd crop it too much, because if you crop it too much, then you're really cropping into the people, and it's still not too bad, but in my mind, it's getting a little tight. So the real question is what is it you're trying to accomplish and get that across?
Thank you, Mike. This is my picture. Okay.
Yeah. What did you have in mind when you were?
Now, because I was in the sugar bush, okay, I would like to try to show the vastness of the area, and then I
Yeah.
wait for the people to come in to give a scale.
Gotcha.
So, but I was trying to get the triangle pointing to the far, and it was a big one. But what your comment was really good. Okay,
Yeah.
give me a perspective, and especially I forgot about garbage on the right hand side.
Well, so I don't see sugar bush. Like I don't see anything
It
on the
was on the right
trees.
hand side okay, further, but I just want to see the,
Yeah.
just want to show the vastness of the area and the early springtime when the trees are denuded.
Yeah. Well, the vastness comes across. I think the vastness
But the
still.
focus is not there. Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, you still have a lot of vastness. Even in that type of scenario, like they're still small compared to the other space,
Mhm.
but you don't want to make them inconsequential. Whoops.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and not everybody will agree with all of my comments. So this is a nice little find. Somebody was walking along and saw some pretty flowers, and by the side of the road, obviously. So certainly this gets my attention right up, up here. This flower, and I mean it looks like it's reasonably sharp, so that's good. The exposure I find is a little bit bright, and the street grid or whatever's over here, some sort of a bridge or some sort of something is some urban stuff in the middle of nature, and it just kind of like contrasts a lot. So I'm not sure I would keep that. Any comments from the maker, or should I just get into some some cleanup work? Okay, so the other thing that happens is your eye goes to the brightest part. So certainly this is nice and bright here, so that's worth doing. But the whole thing looks a little bit bright, so I might just sort of bring some of the exposure down just a little bit. I want to make sure this flower is super sharp, so I might be tempted to just take a radial gradient and just kind of just grab this area over here and give this a little bit more texture and a little bit more clarity just to kind of crisp it up. The leaves are yellow and green and will capture a lot of the eye focus. So again, I probably would take the hue saturation and take the yellows and come on, hue saturation, there we go. And to take the luminance of these leaves down. So I'm just going to use this thing and just pull down some of that color over there, and so just reduce that luminance. And there's before and there's after. So now this is popping a little bit more. I might be tempted to darken this bright area over here. So put a come on, create. this little thing that I have here is arguing with me. So I might just, reduce some of that the brightness in that little area there, cut some of that down, darken it a little bit. So there's a couple of things that we could do. Rule of thirds is kind of nice. So if we had 3 rather than 4, it might be kind of handy. And I see a distraction over here. This is kind of just, I'm finding this is a little distracting as well. So I would just get rid of some of that. Whoops, I would just reduce this. You can use your right square bracket or left square bracket just to make it a little smaller. And just kind of just get that out of there. And so now I don't have that little color distraction that's there. And, do we crop it a little bit? If we do that, and now I turn around and I also get rid of one of these. Yeah. Yeah, now do I have a sort of a rule of thirds happening, type of thing. So anyways, there's a bunch of things you could do. I think I played with it a little bit. One approach I had was, just doing it this way, and the other approach I had was, cropping it right down, and that's, a very different photo. But it really depends on what this shows a little bit more habitat and where you found the flower, and this is really all about the flower itself. So, you can decide what it is that you want to do. But I find, if I look here and I go before and after, just some of the, just a little bit of the toning, and I think I added a little bit of, what are some of the other things I did here? Let's go down the list. Yeah, I added a little bit of vibrance. I brought the shadow detail up. I brought down some of the highlights, added a little bit of contrast, reduced the overall exposure. So I did a little bit of playing around with some of these just to give the picture a little bit more of a feel. So these are the types of things that you want to take a look at. All right. A couple of nice birds, and they're weathering the snow very well. So that's kind of cool. So they're obviously feeding away, something like that. So somebody's captured an interesting little moment. Any comments before I get going? All right, so certainly the subject jumps out. I really like the fact that the white birds are up against the dark background. It's good that they came down at a low angle, because that way you're looking at the birds kind of sideways as opposed to like top down type of thing. So that was very nice. It's unfortunate the birds' feet are cut off. It would have been nice to include them, but I don't know what happened. Maybe if you included more of the birds' feet, then something else would have shown up at the bottom here, some poop or something, I don't know. There's a bit of a repetition going on between the railing or whatever's up at the top. There's a railing there and there's a railing here. So right at the top here, there's something going on. But it's not adding to the photo. I'm tempted to just bring that down a little bit and do something along those lines. And in my mind, kind of like, now the emphasis is more on the birds, and I don't have this extra white stuff at the top. And the second railing, you couldn't tell whether that was the edge of the frame or not, right? So you can sort of see where things are at. If I go back to reset here and I look at the picture, so that blue railing kind of just merges with the background. And again, depends on if you frame this or whatever, if it's going to be on a white background or a black background or whatever. So these are the things to ask yourself. But anyways, I'm going to go back to a crop version of this, and I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I want to do here. The exposure is good. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of detail in the eyes here. You could brighten up this bird's eyes a little bit if you wanted to.
I have a suggestion.
Go right for it.
You know what really bothers me is that railing in the back. It's not level.
Yeah, so
you would just do a line straightener in Photoshop or whatever. Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. It had the disadvantage though of taking just a little bit off the feet, because when you straighten it, you took off a little bit more of the feet, but
true.
But it's worth exploring. It takes you a second to try it,
But what I've learned is to shoot a little bit wider.
Yes.
and then crop later. And so there was, let's say, dog poo in the bottom of the feet.
Yeah,
That could have been photoshopped out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they always say get it right in camera, but in my mind, get it right in camera means get it ready for my next step, and my next step may be I'm going to shoot this, include the feet, and get rid of the doo-doo later type of thing. So I'm just experimenting here to see if I softened some of the backgrounds. There's a lot of texture and stuff on the background, and so I'm just trying to see what happens if I get rid of that. And so I just softened that whole background a little bit. And just got rid of some of that texture. So that's another little change. Any other comments, input? Okay, let's move on. Interesting ducks. Clear enough. Oh, I missed it. He was there for a moment. Let me open up the chat, actually. Okay, so so this is really good. Take a look at the detail here is very, very nice. Certainly, one duck is leading the pack, and sort of it gives you one to focus on, and then it continues a bit of a pattern. There's a nice diagonal, which is cool. So what ends up happening is your eye kind of falls on a diagonal pattern. And the texture is good. I mean, there's the exposure is such that the ducks are nicely done, and the snow has got not a lot of texture in it, but on the other hand, there's nothing in the snow that I really want to see. So this business of make sure your exposure has all the detail all the time, and I'm going, well, if there was too much detail in the snow, I think it might have distracted from the ducks. So I'm not sure that's necessarily what I want to see in this particular situation. Comments from the maker? Okay, what? Oh, somebody's squeaking. I don't know, some voice thing. Try the chat. I don't think your voice or your microphone's doing the right thing. While we wait, so because the group of three here, this top one, the fact that its head is cut off and whatever, I'm tempted to remove that. Move it over here somewhere. I obviously didn't do a good job on that. That's too much feather. I'll just do that for now. I'm doing this awfully fast, so there we go. So having done that, I think I want to reinforce the diagonal a little bit. Maybe use the rule of thirds. Get something like this going. And then put a little more texture into the duck. Oh, that's nice and sharp. A little bit of clarity. There we go. And so there's my kind of before and after type thing. And you can see there's a lot more detail in that duck that was available. Did Carrie sort out her voice? Thanks, I just wanted your thoughts. Okay, great. I like the removal of the fourth duck. Okay, so I mean, these are all, pros and cons. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of, what it is that we can do. But I mean, just playing with those sliders, really kind of just added that little extra texture, that little extra pop. And some people prefer to take, they push down their Alt key and they take this black slider and they bring it down, bring it down, bring it down until all of a sudden, now I have some blacks that are appearing. And that's kind of the so-called ideal for the blacks. And then they look at the whites and they kind of bring it up until, oh, I'm now getting whites to the point where they're overexposed. So now that there's some black blacks and there's some white whites. To me, that's maybe a little bit too much white. It's almost like it's overexposed here, so I'll go back a bit. But in theory, that's one way to assess whether you've got blacks and whites, is use the Alt key with the black and white sliders. Okay, what are these? Orchids?
That's mine.
Yeah, well, I can tell by the logo.
That's my my Thanksgiving cactus blooming at Easter.
Ah, okay, a cactus. Okay, I was trying to
Okay.
determine the type of flower. So so the subject is obviously so the center flower, and it's sharp, it's crisp, some good detail there. So actually, it's very sharp in the leaves, and this whatever these stamens or whatever is a little bit soft. What did you use for settings here? So you shot this at 5.6. So with a tripod, you could have made these even sharper, but then of course you got to deal with the sharpness of the background. So right now you've got the front flower nice and sharp, and the others are a little bit soft. The cactus has these little bright spots in the back that are a little distracting, and so they're just part of the reality. But I mean, one could try to eliminate some of those. And this one didn't work out very well. Whoops, I'll move this one over here. And so if the spot removal isn't very good, you can just try refresh and try a couple of different times and see until you get something that you kind of like, because it's going to try different variations. Oh, we're getting there. Yeah. And then maybe spot removal and spot removal. Anyways, so I would play with that a little bit. Other than that, I mean, you could see what it tries to find in terms of background and see what it thinks is the subject. And so it found the flower pretty good. It kind of missed this petal here, but I can always clean that up by saying add and paint a little bit of area here or something like that. Whoops, I guess add wasn't the right word. Okay, let's change it to a subtract. And oops, okay, I just need to have the full flow. And back to add. And that was dumb. My tablet's doing some weird things. There we go. And so that's add. Let's go to subtract. There we go. Now we're just kind of anyway. So we're cleaning it up. So now we've selected the. I don't know what's going on here. So now that we've done that, now we can turn around and we've selected the background. We can just make it a little bit darker if we want, and we can make the background even a little softer. And something along those lines. So there's kind of a before and after. And that's maybe too much. And then you've got this overall amount slider here. You can bring the whole thing down or bring the whole thing up, and you can all of your adjustments can be magnified or diminished by this one slider. And so, anyway, something to play with. But I mean, it's nice and crisp. And I mean, if you want to get a little bit more sharpness over here, Larry, you could add another quick mask. And just brush this area over here and just give it a little bit more texture, a little bit more clarity. I mean, you never bring back, where's the sharpness? Here it is. You can never bring back what wasn't there, but the new AI tools are in fact doing a pretty good job at that stuff. But there's before and after just on the stamen there, or whatever they're called.
Okay. So no,
Okay. Whoops.
you can go back a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can talk about. So I watched the composition recording.
Yeah,
The one
yeah,
that posted at the end said, "Go take a photo."
yeah,
And so I said, "Okay." So if you look at the flower,
yeah,
it's on the bottom third, row of thirds,
yeah, yeah,
and the intersection point is pretty well where the
yeah,
business part of the flower is.
yep, yep,
I got it sharp. There's two elements,
yeah,
and then I got 1, 2, 3
yeah,
third elements, and it's sort of a triangle.
yeah.
4 elements. I win.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, we ended up not discussing the composition, right? We never kind of went, oh, it's it's a little off centered or whatever. So yeah, and the rules are there to guide us, right? I mean, I don't know that you if you've got 3 elements and and it works great. If you've got 4 elements and it seems to work for you, then you don't go out of your way to remove it just because there's 4. It's is it visually appealing? So I kind of like the little brown thing at the bottom. It gave you a place to put your logo, but it also it provides a little bit of foundation for the flowers as well. So yep, job well done. Okay, a couple of bald eagles here, and not sure if the maker wants to make a comment, but this is obviously a very fortunate find. I bet you they had all of 2.5 seconds to take this shot before the scene changed completely.
Yeah, I threw in this photo and a couple of the other ones that I threw in
Yeah.
because I don't know what to do with them. But yeah, you're right. It was a really fortunate opportunity
Yeah,
that
yeah.
came in front of me, so I had to take some shots of it, but don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So the reality is, when we've got a grab shot, you take it, as opposed to, oh, it's not quite perfect. Yeah, take it. You're never going to get that chance again, and then do what you can with it. So I mean, because it was so fast and so quick, it's unfortunate that the wing is kind of missing off the edge here. I mean, if you're really, really fancy with Photoshop, you could extend the photo and rebuild the wing and so on, but we're not going to do that tonight. I think all of the action and what's going on is at the bottom. And if I look at it, by the way, this bird is looking up at the other one. So this looks like there's almost a fight going on between this guy over here and that guy down there. And this guy's looking, at the same bird. So for sure, one of the first things I'm going to want to suggest is put the emphasis where where the birds are, and right off the bat you've got a more powerful image. And now the emphasis is you got 1, 2, 3. This bird's looking up here. This bird's looking up as well. So you've got these what I would call virtual leading lines. So your eye is going to follow these birds up to this guy, and then you see him swooping down. So your eye just bouncing around these 3 things, and that makes it much more dramatic as well. So other than that, I mean, I'd probably try to put a little bit more texture and clarity on the birds themselves. Maybe put a little bit of brightness into that. It was a cloudy, overcast day, I'm going to guess.
Yes.
So I mean, if you want, you can kind of give the picture a little bit of warmth. If you like that mood, you do something along those lines. If you want to keep the emphasis on the birds, then there's still a lot of texture in the rock here. How was this taken? This was taken at 1/2000th of a second, which is good. It froze the birds. F8, so everything's nice and sharp. It's interesting that it was as far back as it was, because you shot this at 350 millimeter, but you had a 500 millimeter lens available to you. So you could have, in theory, zoomed in more, but again, it was one of those grab shots, right?
True.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. I would have zoomed if I had time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's great. So to remove some of this emphasis on these rocks, I might be tempted to kind of just brush this area over here, and just brush some stuff over here sloppily, and then reduce the texture and the clarity on those rocks. So now the emphasis is a little bit more on the birds, a little bit more. And I'm not sure I would do a whole lot more than that. I mean, let's see if there's any color in here to go grab. Can we add a little bit of vibrance? See, the vibrance brings out the yellow in their beaks, but it also brings out the yellow in the rocks and stuff. But I mean, we can try with that. Dehaze puts a little more texture on the water, which is kind of interesting. So like if we try that. It really that's probably putting a little too much emphasis on the water. I don't know if what's your feeling?
Yeah, I would agree. I prefer it a little bit more
Yeah,
subtle, I think, the
yeah,
water.
yeah. So I mean, and there's a couple of ways of handling that. I can turn around and I can say, select color range, and try to select that, and really reduce that color range. No, not doing a good job at all. Okay, so come on. Let's subtract and subtract all of this. And then I could take that texture and soften the water and whatever. I mean, you can do a bunch of stuff. Give the water a blue hue.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can do all
Yes.
kinds of stuff. It's a matter of where you want to go. But anyways, I mean, it gives you a couple of things. But for a grab shot, gosh, I mean, pat yourself on the back type of thing.
Yeah, I
And
think it
then,
was just more thrilling to be there and watch
yeah,
them.
yeah. And
And
sometimes nothing wrong with coming back with memories,
exactly. Thank
even if
you.
I didn't
Thank
get the
you.
photo. Yeah. Is there such a thing for photographers as like fishermen? The one that got away.
That's right. I think there is. I think that was it.
All right. So let's move on here. All right. So somebody found an interesting specimen in the middle of a mealtime. So I'm not sure if our maker is here,
Yes,
but
it was at a drive-through.
at a drive-through. All right.
Yeah, and it was during COVID, so I think they were, using the
Hmm.
parking lots quite a bit just because they could. There
Yeah.
was no
Yeah.
one around.
Yeah. So, all right. I mean, certainly, one of the things that happens is your eye notices distractions. And so these little entrails that are here are things that take away from the subject, but they help tell the story. I would not remove those. I leave those there because they're part of the picture and then tell me a little bit more about what's going on here. So, I mean, overall, the bird looks like it's reasonably sharp. And I mean, the exposure is good. It doesn't have a lot of contrast. It doesn't really pop. So I mean, that's the one things I would look at is maybe adding a little bit of contrast and try to add some texture. See, the bird's feathers are really popping now. So can you see the difference on your screen? I don't know how well it comes across on Zoom and stuff.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with my
Whoops.
bandwidth, I think, tonight. So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, I could see it for a second there, but right now it's not showing up.
Yeah.
But
So I'm just doing a before and after, and before, there's the before, and there's the after. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, I'm not sure there's a whole lot more I could do here. There's, whoops, I take this brush. No, that's not what I wanted. I want this to here. There's a little texture over here, which is just, off in the corner, and it draws my eye. The bird's kind of looking this way, and my eye finds this texture. So I might be tempted to just brush this stuff away over here. Well, that didn't work very well. Try it again. That's better. So, just reduce some of that texture. And now that that texture is gone, I'm actually seeing a little bit of I don't know if it's sensor dust or something over here. There's a little spot there. I'm using my mouse wheel to just reduce the size of this thing, and I'm just kind of, oh, come on. There we go. Something like that. So there's little spots here and there that I might kind of just clean up, just so the background is as unobtrusive as possible, and the emphasis is really on the bird. And if there's no other little specks or anything in the background that are distracting, then these entrails tend to show up properly. I mean, the only other thing I could think of is, would you want to vignette it a little bit? I don't know. Just put the emphasis even more on the bird. All things worth
yeah, I
trying.
like that. I like that. It makes it a little darker. It seems a little too bright,
Yeah.
so that's better.
And the brightness is something we can impact as well. I mean, we could have come down here and just reduce the highlights.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Much better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem. But and when you darkened it, by the way, these entrails really came out as well. So that's another little thing. I mean, we could get in here and create more texture and put a little bit of saturation just on top of them, and that really, now we're emphasizing them. Okay, so that's the end of the O1s. We'll get into the O2s. Did I miss anyone's photos that submitted some and for some reason I didn't number them properly? Okay, so this is a lovely abstract, and I don't know if it's done in camera or in
Yeah, that was an in-camera. I was playing with in-camera double exposure.
okay, good.
And
So
so I took a picture and then I flipped my camera upside down
good.
and put the middle where it was, like the middle dot, that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also put it into Topaz Studio and added something called melting.
Yeah, I see there's some texture in here, right?
Yeah.
In the background, which gives it a really intriguing look. So that's kind of nice. Now the new mirrorless cameras, I don't know if you're using one of those, Deb, but
No.
okay, so the mirrorless cameras, for those of you who have it, this technique is really a fun one to try, because the mirrorless camera, what it does is you say, I'm doing a double exposure, so you can take one picture, and then the mirrorless camera can show you your first picture at half intensity. So you're looking through the viewfinder, seeing what you're seeing, plus you're seeing superimposed the previous picture. And now you can line them up very nicely and do whatever you need to do. And then when you take the second picture, it literally does a double exposure for you. But you can be guided by the first exposure because it's partially visible to you in the viewfinder. So Debbie had to use her center spot. So this one I tried playing with a little bit, and I tried adding texture, and then these little ridges and lines kind of came out more than I wanted. And I tried clarity, I tried contrast, and I didn't end up finding anything that kind of really said, oh, this is so much better. I mean, like what you wanted to do, Deb, and I think it comes across very successfully. It's a lovely abstract. It captures the imagination. As I played with it, I noticed there were a couple of times when there were sort of sensor spots or stuff that would show up, and I don't know if everyone knows this little trick, but if you turn on the spot removal tool, then there's a visualize spots button. You can turn that on, and then if you play with it, you can see spots in various places that might need some cleanup. So I went through and I found a couple of spots, but I mean like over here somewhere, there's these little spots that show up. So just so that your pattern doesn't get disrupted, and I think I remember seeing one down here somewhere. There it was. And so those little spots are the only things that I can see myself. There might be others, but you go through and clean them up a little bit, especially if you're doing artistic work. Well, I think there's another one over here somewhere. If you're doing some artistic work and you want to print this up nice and big and you want to sell it in the gallery, then that kind of work has to be done. You can't sell it with the little spots and stuff in place. And you probably want to use something other than Lightroom. Lightroom does a reasonable job at spot removal, but it's nowhere near as good as getting into Big Brother Photoshop. Anyone else have comments or input? I think it's kind of neat. I always applaud photographers who often do experimentation and let's get beyond bring the camera to your eye, focus, exposure, click, and it's always nice to do some other stuff. All right. So another one from Co. Lovely, nice low angle, buddy. The snow, the way it's textured, there's almost like a leading line. My eye enters over here, follows this ridge, goes over to the top, and then sees the trees, and the trees are pointing up to the sky, and I see the grandeur of the sky and whatnot. So you've got the foreground, you've got the middle ground, you've got the background. So I think it's the type of thing we would walk by and not even notice, and you clearly saw it. So good for you.
But one thing I want you to comment is in the middle, the pile of some kind of dirt, okay?
Yeah.
In the middle. Should I eliminate?
Well, I mean, the various schools of thought that, to me that's part of the texture of what's going on there. I don't think I eliminated it. I found this little piece in the
Oh, yeah.
corner a little bit more distracting, so I'm tempted to just get rid of that. And now I
That's-
don't have anything distracting me near the edges. Things hold your attention. It's very interesting. If you have something that's really close to the edge, so you've got a little break in the tree over here, that holds your attention a lot more than the break over here. It's just the way your eye works. So your little breaks in the tree kind of all of a sudden, boop, there's no distraction near the edge of the frame. So your eye tends to stay in the center of the frame, and nothing near the edge is pulling your eye away. So other
Very
than
good.
that, I mean, do you need as much snow in the front? Could you crop it a little bit? I don't know. I think I would probably put a little bit of clarity in the overall image. The trees have gotten dark with the clarity, so I'll bump that up a little bit, give some vibrance to the sky, and like that's it. Just pops a little bit more.
Yeah, it looks much better.
Yeah, it's just a little bit.
Mm.
I don't know that I did anything else with this one. Let me just hit my. No, it looks pretty much the same thing. So I took a quick look at some of these beforehand just to get my thoughts in order, and it's
Thank you.
usually pretty easy to reconstruct some of my thoughts. But I mean, it's well done, and if you want to
Thank
get
you.
rid of some of this stuff, and if you want to play with it, just out of curiosity. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do a good job with Lightroom. Yeah, right. I'm going to drag that all the way over here
Okay.
and try to find a spot that makes sense here. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that looks better. Yeah.
I mean, like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, you could decide, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very appreciate.
Yep. All right. Everyone's happy when they see one of these. I mean, just like we're out walking and we don't always get these guys nice and close. How far away was this? This was a 200 millimeter lens. It's a 55 to 250, and she took it at, or he or she, yeah, Angel, took it at 200 millimeter. So there's a bunch of things happening here. I mean, you've certainly got the heron, I think it's called, and then you've got a duck or something over here. So I don't know if there's supposed to be an interaction between the two of them, or the emphasis is supposed to be just the heron. I don't know what were you trying to record there, Angel? Is it Angie? Angel? Is it Angie? Oh, I think it's Angie. Okay, so certainly I'd like a lot more texture and brightness, and this is kind of looking a little bit dark there, so I'd be tempted to kind of bring up a little bit of brightness on the bird. There we go. And do something along those lines. There's a lot of stuff happening, and there's a lot of like little weeds and stuff that are happening in the water, and they're there. There's not, you can only do so much in terms of cleanup. I mean, I'm sure you can try to do a little bit of cleanup there, but you're going to be cleaning up forever if you try to do that. So I'm not sure I would spend a lot of time on that. I probably would focus more on the bird though. And if this duck is important, I would probably try to include the duck as well. You got to decide what it is that you want to focus on. Now you've got the rocks juxtaposing from the water, so you can play with along those lines. I played with it a little bit, and I made the water a little bit brighter, the birds brighter, so you can play with that kind of a approach. The bird's got the bird's looking out this way, so there's some nice white space here. We tend to have lots of pixels on our cameras, so we could in fact try to do something along these lines as well. That's a different image, and your eye can pop hop, back and forth. And, Larry's going to ask me, why isn't it 3? I don't know. Is that better? I don't mind. This gives me a bit of a foreground. I mean, and I actually have a 3, and then I got another one which is different because it's got a bird on it, and the 3 kind of go together as a setting, and the bird is there. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can play with it. I probably would like to have a little bit more negative space where the bird is looking. I don't like the bird kind of just. So if I go too far, now I'm stuck with some of these rocks. So in Photoshop, I could get rid of the bird and the rock and give it a little bit more negative space. But right now, I'm kind of stuck going there. If I do that, that's actually another possibility. And do I want that or not? And very often I just try these things just to see what happens. And I'm looking at, I probably want a little bit more texture on that bird right now. Now I don't want the texture in the water necessarily, so I could ask Photoshop to try to find my subject. Or not Photoshop, Lightroom. And then put the texture just on the bird, on the clarity, a little bit of brightness there, something along those lines. Now if I make the bird over white, then I can go down to the overall image and reduce the overall exposure. So, I mean, a couple of different ways of handling that. Yeah, now I emphasize the bird. Anyways, I mean, so there's a big difference between, there's if you shoot over wide, as Larry says, and then you've got a lot of cropping options as you go along. And sometimes you want different cropping options. What you put on Instagram, which is square, might be a little different from what you put in an 8x10 print. Okay, let's move on. All right, so I'm guessing from the logo this belongs to Larry. So this, I recognize the model and the event, and Larry's turned this into an interesting composite. So a composite is when a photographer takes 2 images and brings them together and creates sort of a blend between the 2 of them, and does that in a realistic manner. And in fact, this is well done in terms of the color temperature of this room, or wherever whatever image she picked up for the background matches the model. She doesn't look like she's like in a yellowy light and the room's in an orangey light or whatever. So the 2 of them get blended together. Did you put an overall filter on the whole thing to blend it, Larry?
No,
No.
I changed the hue and saturation of the model.
Of just one. Okay, so you picked one and used it to match the other. So you whatever you did, it works. It doesn't jump out at me as like, oh, she looks like she was pasted in there, that type of thing. So the thing that did distract me a little bit is the light source on her arm. And by the way, your cutouts are great. I mean, if I look around here, I don't see any white cutouts or anything, and even the blending in the hair looks pretty good. So your ability to cut it out was well done. But this little light,
hair.
Sorry?
I really hate hair.
It's hardest to do. But take a look at this light on her shoulder.
Okay.
And it suggests the light source is coming from behind her. But look at the shadows on everything else. The light source is coming in the opposite direction for everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this part of her arm should have been the darkest.
Oh.
Right? Because the light source would be coming from left to right, causing this shadow. Look at the shadow on the floor. Look at the shadow from on the table.
Okay.
Look at the shadow coming down here. So the light source is up on the top left, shining down, and yet she's got a brightness on her spot. So had you reversed her before you composited her, then that light would have blended better.
Okay.
Right? But other than that, I mean...
Or I could have burned it.
You could have spent a lot of time burning it.
Or make it not as noticeable, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could have also reversed the room. left her the way she was and just reverse your backdrop.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, just pay attention to those are the things that the things that kill composites are mismatched color, hue, saturation, that kind of stuff, because they were shot in different lights. Mismatched lighting angles in terms of shadows and that kind of stuff, and mismatched perspectives. If you're looking at the room from a bird's eye view and you're looking down at the room, but you're looking up at the model from a low angle, something just in your head just says, this doesn't right. But here, they both seem to be about eye level, so the perspectives match, the hue and saturation match. You just have a little mismatch on the light.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. This is a really neat, like a storytelling image. There's a gentleman who's about to walk out into the yonder or something like that. My eye kind of just follows the line in from the gentleman off into the wilderness. Then there's this bright area over here, and I kind of go, okay. And then my eye is distracted, goes up to the top and goes, oh, there's a tree here, okay. And then I see this little speck in the sky, and I kind of going, what the heck is that? So I'm kind of just, oh, there's an airplane there. Is he doing something with the airplane? So I'm thinking maybe. Oh, well, I don't see him with a remote control in his hand, so he's not controlling that airplane. Maybe it's just independent. So my first impression is like, wow, this is kind of neat. I like the little storytelling, and then I start seeing all these other things, and now I start to lose the story. So I'm not sure who submitted this, but was there some sort of thought that you want to get across, or some sort of image? Okay. Well, so I mean, I find this little plane distracting, and this tree, using trees and things like that is a very good composition technique called framing. And so if you want to hold someone's attention and not have the eye wander into the sky, whatever, you can have an overhanging tree or whatever to kind of distract from the sky and bring the viewer's attention to what you want. But here the tree is so far away from presumably the main subject. I'm not sure this is adding anything to the picture. It's just adding a visual distraction in the sky, and it's got no context. So I mean, I'm tempted to kind of just pull that out of there. And then, do I want to turn it into an interesting panorama and do something like that? I mean, that's a fairly powerful image.
What if you flip it?
Yeah, and that's another thing I think we could do here. Again, this right to left idea, photo. And here the image looks a little different. So here it's interesting. I see the guy right away, gives the right to left. I see him, and then I start to see the road, and then my eye goes wandering over, and I land over here somewhere saying, okay, so what's there for me to look at? If I flip it, actually, let's go back and just do it this way. Then my eye comes in, hits the rocks, the leading line to the white area, and my eye kind of wanders around. Then I see this leading line, and the guy comes in as an afterthought. And then I go, oh, what's he doing? And then my eye travels back out again. So this is one where, to my opinion, it tells a better story as is, because he becomes the afterthought, and he's not the leading line. And then I'm looking at, okay, so where's he going? What's he doing? So one way I'm left with a bunch of questions, and the other way I'm left with a bit more of a visual story. My eye kind of travels in, hits him, wonders what he's doing, and then travels back out again. So I don't know.
Actually, this is mine.
Yes.
And if this you crop it like that, then the middle line is right in the middle.
You're quite right. So we could make it, I can't crop the bottom. I lose the man. So we could do it into the rule of thirds. You see, if you're here, this is in theory the rule of thirds, right? There's one line right here and one line right there, and it's just not. It's not working for me. That just had that little bit of stuff at the top there. That's a pure distraction. So this is one of those where I'm tempted to just say, if I'm going to make it rule of thirds, I could do that and eliminate most of the sky. There's a little bit of white there that I don't particularly like. I could reduce it to change some of the, make it a little less. It depends on what you're going to do with it, right? I mean, this is something that's very tough to put onto Instagram, for instance. It's just too wide, doesn't fit your phone format, etc. So, but I mean, it's a powerful image as it is. There are tools in Photoshop where you could squish the whole thing without squishing the guy, move the rocks over and kind of consume some space. But we're not going to get into photo editing and that kind of stuff here. But even in its original format, you can go up even as high as that. And I would think that little plane is just kind of distracting a little bit. And then give the whole thing a little bit more texture if you want the sky. If you're going to include a lot of sky, it's got to be interesting, right? So you're going to have to see if you can put a little bit more oomph in there. And this is just, changing the sky a little bit. I mean, your subject is the guy, and he's not particularly sharp, so that's another factor. Is when you focus on something like this, it looks like the rocks were reasonably crisp. And what was this shot at? It was shot at an 80th of a second f10. So I mean, you should be able to hold the camera reasonably still at an 80th of a second. But I'm guessing the camera might have tried to focus out here somewhere, and it wasn't being focused. Like I don't know if you moved your focus point from the center to the edge, or you did a focus and recompose and focused on the man and then recomposed the image. But try to make sure that your subject is really as sharp as possible. You probably got a lot of sharpness just because of the f10, and you were pretty far away from the image. Yeah. So I think I ended up with this kind of a setup when I was playing with it. And I mean, it makes for a very nice panorama and a bit of a storyline, but it's an awkward thing to frame and to share online, although your banner page on Facebook would accommodate a nice wide picture.
Okay. What happens if I get rid of the guy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a completely different photo, but yeah, let's go for that. Sorry. And how far do you want to go?
Well, doesn't matter as
Yeah.
long as it looks good.
Yeah, so I mean, now that the photo is now a landscape image, right? The guy's not there anymore, and we're into something, something like that, which is, that's a different photo, and it's kind of intriguing on its own too.
Actually, I was focused on the stone, those rocks.
You were focused on the stones. All right. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
then this becomes an interesting way of doing it, and you can certainly add a lot more texture to these stones. Give them some punch. So you can do something along those lines, which is again a very different image.
Yeah.
I would remove some of the saturation. There we go. I like vibrance a lot more than saturation. Saturation gives things an unreal color. I like vibrance a lot better. Does that help?
Yeah, it's better. I suppose.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if the emphasis was the rocks, then by all means, then don't worry about the guy. When I was looking at it, I saw the guy and I thought, oh, he's the subject and everything else is part of the story. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's keep moving. So this is another wonderful find. Eagles, maybe even the same maker. And let me see, this was shot with a 320 millimeter lens. It was shot at 320 millimeter out of 500. So one could have gone in closer with the 500. But I mean, those eagles are crisp, they're sharp. So I certainly would focus on those eagles a lot more. Um, so I think I came in and I really cropped on those birds. So I wanted to leave a little bit of space there. Now I tried a couple of different crops. I tried, like what happens if you include the tree? Like here's another possible crop. And now you've got a leading line at the top, at the bottom here, leading to your eagles. You've got an overhanging branch, kind of bringing your eye down. So your eye's kind of traveling in this circle and seeing these birds. So that's one possibility. And then there's a very tight crop. And if you look down the side here, I just bumped up the shadows a little bit. I added some texture. I added a little bit of clarity so that the birds look a little bit more punchy.
What are they looking at?
Well, that's a good question. So in this image, you see them doing something, but you're not sure what. If you go back to the original, I looked to see if there was something that we could find. There's another bird or something that was over here. It was fighting or whatever. But I didn't find a second object that I thought I wanted to include. So,
Yeah, I would have preferred if the eagles had come in landing facing the other direction into the open space. But they didn't. They landed facing the tree.
Yeah. Just, animals don't behave the same way as models. It's very hard to say, lower your shoulder, turn your head a little bit to the right, raise your beak a little bit. There you go. Perfect. Click.
That's right.
Yeah. So, no, my hats off to the nature photographers who have the patience to sit there and wait until the eagle, goes off, catches some food, comes back, lands in a different angle, different direction on a different branch. I mean, it takes time and energy to get these types of images. I'm looking at this now and I'm thinking it's too tight. The eagles are too close to the top. I'm tempted to just raise it just a little bit. Not so much that I want to get that other tree. Yeah, that other tree's in there, which I don't want. Yes, there's still just a little bit of a dot there, and I'm tempted to just get rid of that. Oh yeah, that didn't work at all. So hit refresh. That didn't work either. All right, fine. I will do it myself. I will pick a spot.
I can drive myself crazy cleaning up pictures.
Oh, well, I mean, the joy of doing all that stuff is, if you
Yeah,
don't
and
like editing, you shouldn't be a photographer.
that line in front of them, that little tiny branch drives me crazy. So I think when I took a stab at it, I had removed some of those little branches as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you can go nuts with a lot of things, but I mean, at the same time, it's got to be natural, right? So when you're doing this kind of stuff, if you're editing this kind of stuff, folks, it looks weird if it looks weird if you try to do the whole thing all at once. Something's going on here. I can't seem to draw a straight line for some reason. Come on. Okay, so I do this. I do the whole thing except for the edges, and get rid of the feather, and then I do this one separate, and I do this one separate.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Okay, so that way I
Yeah.
don't end up with all this fuzzy stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and then the same thing over here. And move this over here somewhere. Yeah, the edges are always weird. There you go. You gotta fuss with the edges. So anyways, I mean, you can play with it to a certain extent, but I mean, the clarity and the texture really made a difference on this one, and so that's kind of some playing around
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, I agree. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a really fun shot. So, I mean, what it's super clear what the subject is here. I mean, the boy is super crisp, nice and sharp. I mean, you can. Oops, wrong tool. You just look at his eyes. He's really crisp, and it's clear what he's looking at. I mean, almost to the point where you can almost see the reflection of the of the chipmunks in his eyes. The chipmunk is just out of focus enough that you can see what it is, but it's not distracting. It doesn't become the subject. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can improve here. If you didn't want the chipmunk intruding on the boy's left eye, or his right eye, I should say, then you could have moved a little bit to the right, and so the chipmunk and the boy would not be, overlapping. But on the other hand, it kind of connects them somehow. I mean, like you don't want it to look like a composite where the chipmunk was added afterwards. So I kind of like the way it is. I mean, if the boy was not rusty on his chin and deforming his chin a little bit, that would have been wonderful. But quite frankly, I I like it as it is. What would I change? Not a whole lot, really. I mean, the young boy, good skin clarity. You don't have to do a lot in terms of embellishing the skin or making the eyes sharper or whatever. Chipmunk's got a little bit of I don't know if it's a cut or something, or maybe some discoloration right about there. So maybe play with that, but I don't see a whole lot of stuff to be done. Anybody have other comments here? I think this is cool. I think it's really neat.
I did have to take some of the dirt off his face.
Well, I mean, you did a good job because it doesn't come across, and maybe a little bit of a freckle there, but I mean, I don't tend to remove freckles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, well done, and the angle, it's nice and low. It's like right at the level of his face. You're not looking down on him or anything like that. So nicely done. And some people say, well, could have shown more of the chipmunk or whatever. But to me, there's just enough for me to see what he's doing, and I don't need to see the chipmunk. The chipmunk isn't my subject.
And that's actually what I was thinking. It
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, the kid, my grandson's the subject, right?
Yeah,
So, and he
absolutely.
can still tell it's a chipmunk. So
Yeah. No, so yeah,
good. I'm glad you thought that way. That's what I
expertly
thought
done.
too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good timing here. I mean, squirrels just leaping to safety. Maybe somebody's coming in. Maybe the photographer scared them away. I don't know. But there's a story here. You can see the squirrel jumping away. There's texture in the wood. There's everything's sort of crisp, sharp. There's a little bit of snow at the bottom, which might be overexposed, but that's not where the picture is, right? Who cares what the snow is doing down at the bottom here? To me, that's not part of the story. And too much texture in the snow would, in fact, take away from the subject. So I wouldn't be doing a whole lot of changes there. Who's this, Debbie?
Yeah, it's me again. And I also applied in Topaz Studio. I also applied a peeling paint filter and pulled it a bit.
Well, it doesn't come across as having been filtered. I mean, there's some funny coloring happening at the top. I see it over here a little bit now that you mention it, and a little bit in the snow, but it's not at the point where it's kind of like, oh, this is a cool filter. Like I look at the picture and I see the squirrel. I don't look at the filter, and that's when you know you've done a good job. Is if somebody looks at the photo and sees what you want them to see, as opposed to like it's like the lady who makes a dress and everyone says to her, first thing they say is when they see it is, oh, did you make that yourself? And you have to ask yourself, did I do such a bad job? Everybody's asking me if I made it. So it's the same thing with photographic filters and that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, oh yeah, where'd you get that filter? As opposed to, oh wow, what a cool photo. So I'm not sure I did a whole lot with this. I mean, I might have just played a little bit with some texture and that kind of stuff, but not really. I mean, maybe added a little bit of color to it and you give it a little bit more pop, but I, I like it as it is. The branches are not interfering. Like your timing was good. You didn't jump, with a branch kind of cutting across its body or anything like that. So that's kind of neat. There's not much you can crop here without losing, the screws and the context of the box. You'd have to crop in really, really tight so you no longer saw the context of the box. You just know it's jumping and you don't know what it's jumping from. And to me, that loses a certain degree of the value here. Maybe even straighten it a bit. I mean, it's more emphasis on the squirrel there, but I think you've lost some of the story. And if you do
Yeah,
come in,
it was basically a squirrel stealing all the bird
the bird
all the-
seed, yeah.
in the bird
Yeah.
feeder.
Yeah. The other thing that happens is when you scroll in this tight, a lot of other little things become distractions. That little screw there holds my attention. I'd want to get rid of that, and this little thing over here gets rid of my attention. I want to get rid of that. There's another little one over here. So there's a lot more cleanup if you start scrolling, zooming in and cropping.
I would crop it just a bit.
A bit more than this?
No, if you go back to the original
Oh yeah, okay.
and you crop it in from the left, just to get rid of that upright twig.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe
more,
you-
more. Perfect.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So now I sort of have a frame inside a frame,
Mm-hmm.
and the squirrel is in my frame, in the
Yeah.
frame of the picture.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, no problem. Some people will tell you, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this easily, that you shouldn't have that twig reaching out of the photo. And you should have something that finishes inside the photo. So that your eye doesn't flow out of the photo. So I just changed that twig that used to go out of the photo, and I just copied the other one. So both twigs land inside the photo. But anyways, I mean, we're fussing at the edges here, folks. All right. Lovely landscape image. I mean, clearly leading lines here all over the place. You follow the riverbank towards the far edge, and from there it leads up to the sky. You've got the photo divided into 2/3 sky and 1/3 sort of a horizon and land. So I mean, it's pleasing, and there's enough texture in the sky. Usually people put too much sky into their photos, and invariably there's nothing in the sky that's of interest. So in this particular case, it tells the story of a particular sort of I don't know, sort of a seasonal day, a nice winter day, that type of thing. So I played with it a little bit, and what I ended up doing was giving the sky a little bit more pop. I think I brought the whites up a little bit and put some texture there, that type of stuff. And then I noticed these things got a little bit dark, so I put a little bit of light in there. And then you could start playing with some leading lines. I started playing with putting a brush in there and bumping up the exposure a little bit. And I think I played with some, whoops. And I tried putting a little bit of like dodging and burning. I started making this snow looks a little bit whiter over here, so that my eye kind of just flowed along these lines a little bit more. Anyway, so I just did a little bit of dodging and burning. So you can see if you want to, you can paint white. I can erase it, and so I can emphasize leading lines and do certain types of things and play with it a little bit. I mean, accent certain portions of the clouds.
Hmm.
I mean, you can get pretty fancy if you want that. So I mean, I played with it a little bit, and I just
Yeah,
so here's a kind of
very
before and
interesting.
after.
Yeah, yeah. I like your technique. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of you take a really good picture and you say, I love this picture. It's really good. And now what are its best points and how do I emphasize those? And all you're
Exactly.
doing is you're bringing out the best in the photo you've already taken.
Mhm. Thank you.
But composition wise and everything, I mean, well done. Exposure too. So fun family shot. There's a bit of a pattern here, a little repetition with each of the girls kind of just doing their stuff, a repetition of the gowns, etc. Um, Angie, did you take a bunch of these, or is this sort of one grab shot? This is certainly is kind of a fun thing. I mean, it gives you a sense of what's going on. Oh, I heard something audio wise. Okay, I didn't hear anything. All right, so it's tough to get this type of thing. There's no separation anywhere, so you got to figure out where you're going to crop it. I see a little ponytail kind of in the middle of the, the edge here. I see some hand kind of in there. I don't think. I mean, unless one of the girls at the end is the daughter or subject of interest, I'm tempted to kind of just kind of cut in a little bit over here, and then do the same thing maybe on this side, and in that way I have less distractions, and I still have maintained all the central images. This was probably taken in very low light. It's a little bit noisy, so we can go to the details screen and just kind of do some noise reduction a little bit, and yeah, just kind of just reduce some of that noise that's in there, so that's a little bit crisper, especially if you're going to print it or something along those lines. Um, Other than that, I mean, I'm not sure I want to make a lot of other changes. Vibrance makes the dress come out a little bit more, but the skin's already got a bit of a yellowy tone. I'm not sure I want to change that a whole lot. I can try to remove some of the yellow, but it doesn't look very natural. So I left it pretty much as is. You can probably play with a little bit of the grading. Actually, let me try this calibration. It brings out the blue and cuts back a little bit on the yellow. And I'll go to HSL and just saturate just trying to get some of that color out of the face. They start to look a little anemic if you do that too far.
Can you remove the upper diagonal line? It's kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a repetition, and it's different from the other repetitions. So I wouldn't be able to do that in Lightroom very easily. You could maybe try, doing something along those lines, but now the cropping gets a little tricky, and some of the girls lose their feet. So, I mean, it's worth trying. I mean, I agree. If you find something distracting, ask yourself what you can do about it, and do your best. But at the same time, you might be limited. Certainly, 95% of my images stay in Lightroom. I hardly ever go to Photoshop. But certainly, if I needed to for something like this, uh, this is the type of thing that would be easy to do in Photoshop. I would just select that out and make more of this pattern over here, over there. But I wouldn't attempt that in Lightroom. That's just beyond the capabilities of this product. I mean, this product started off as a library for photos and had no editing. So
Yeah.
it's come a long, 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 long way from there. But it is a little bit distracting. And I mean, I could make, in Lightroom, I could try to get a color range. That's not going to work. Okay, so there. subtract all of this. What I'm trying to do is, now that I've selected that, I'm wondering if I can give it a different hue or color or something that kind of just ties in with everything else. So I'm playing with just try to play with it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I tried to make those colors the same as all of the others. So it's there's before and there's after type of thing. But that's probably about as far as I could go in Lightroom. Yeah, there's a lot of texture on the floor here as well that I'm seeing now that was that there before. I'm finding that a little bit distracting now. Yeah, so I might be tempted to soften some of that stuff down there. And again, that's fairly simple. I don't know what the background brush does. What does it think the subjects are for this thing? It didn't do a bad job, so I mean I can just soften the background. Yeah, something along those lines. Anyways, I mean I'm just playing with it, but yeah, that's kind of where I ended up. And you can do a certain amount, but at some point in time you say, yeah, as someone was saying earlier, I can go crazy editing. So so lighting here is good. Certainly the model is lit from the far right hand side beyond the mirror, casting a little light on the edge of the mirror and lighting her, so that the part that's reflected through the mirror is well lit. So,
Well, of course, a lighting's expert because you set it up.
but you didn't change it, so so you accepted it.
And she's smiling. I couldn't get her to smile the whole session.
No, she's got a good smile. You got a good thing. So I'm seeing some nice texture in the lace and the hair type of thing. So the only thing I would probably do is get a brush, add a little bit of clarity to things, and just get a little bit of see the hair's cupping out a little bit more. So get a little bit of light in. And so something along those lines. And so you've got sort of this just a little bit of sparkle in the hair and in the bra. So you've got a little bit more sparkle there, but I don't think there's a whole lot I would change here. Yeah, do you see the difference in the hair, Larry?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I was thinking. I looked at this picture again, and I said, "What about that white light on the mirror?"
Over here?
Yeah, on the right-hand side. Would I burn it out, or not that side? The other side. The whole line.
Oh, the white line over here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Darken it up, maybe.
I don't see that as a huge issue. I mean, one could.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in before mode. That's not going to help. Create a new brush, and I just dab, shift, dab, and then I would just bring the highlights down.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I mean, if it's distracting to you, I mean, if you find it distracting, then just deal with it.
Well, what was distracting? There was beside her belly button in the mirror, there was a desk,
Oh, okay.
and I cloned it out.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, the overall effect is very positive, very good. All right. Oh, this is a beautiful find. Well posed, just it looked like it got painted in place. It looks gorgeous. The little berries there are just perfect. There's no other berries to distract. Lots of nice bokeh. So I mean, this is the type of thing that does very, very well in the sort of the nature competitions and whatever in the various camera clubs. So this is excellent. And how was it? This was shot at 500 millimeters, so at far end of the lens's capability. 1/2000th of a second obviously kept it nice and sharp. Even at 1/500th of a millimeter, at 500 millimeter, you need this kind of shutter speed to keep your picture nice and sharp. And managed to get some 6.3 in terms of the f-stop, so they got some full sharpness on the bird. Still managed to get some good bokeh. Bumped it up to 1000 ISO, and you know what? Our cameras can do so well these days. There's no reason why you can't do 2600 or 3200 ISO nowadays with most modern cameras. They're getting so much better. So I don't know. There's a whole lot I would do here. I think I played with it a little bit, and there was, I think there's nothing really to play with. I mean, you can try to give the bird. I tried giving the bird a little bit of a darkening it and giving it a little bit more color and stuff like that, but one has more of a painterly feel, the other one has more of a photographic, photorealistic feel. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. But when the first impression of it is it almost looked painterly, and I appreciated that look. So I didn't find a whole lot to change. Here's one where Debbie, you were asking about flipping things. I don't know if flipping this horizontally gives the bird a little bit more emphasis.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, you put a little bit more of a diagonal on the bird. I think I like the diagonal better. When I flip it around, I found the angle was different, and so I like giving it a little bit more of a diagonal feel. So you got to decide whether you like that one or that one. Flip horizontal is not something that shows up in the history. I don't know why, but oh well. What happens if I change diagonal on this one? Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. So, yeah.
I'm glad you talked about flipping today because I never use flipping. So, and you've shown some really good examples of when it might be good to do that. So,
Yeah,
that's great. Thanks.
It's worth considering, yeah. All right. Well, this has got a beautiful vintage feel to it. The treatment is wonderful. The subject matter lends itself to the treatment. I also see that the maker did a little bit of panning here. If you look at the windows and whatnot, they're a little bit blurred. Just enough to make the wheels spin and the horse's feet. So this is shot at a 30th of a second f/22. So lots of depth of field, so everything is crisp into the background, but at the same time with the panning that took place, the subject is still reasonably sharp, but at the same time the wagon itself is crisp. It's just the wheels, the horses, and a little bit of the buildings that have gotten soft. And because the buildings got softer, then that really puts more emphasis on the horse. So not a whole lot to change here. I also noticed there's a little bit of texture there, and I don't know if that's noise at ISO 400. I can't see that. I suspect it was added grain, just to give it a little bit more of a texture. So Sheila, I don't know if you're online.
Yeah, it's a treatment from Silver Effects, Nick Collection, Silver Effects.
Oh yeah, okay.
Just one of their filters. So it probably put the green in, and it kind of did a little bit of vignetting, and yeah.
Yeah. I don't notice the vignetting actually.
A little bit of white
Oops.
on the edge.
Hang on a second. I pushed the wrong button. A little bit of white vignetting, yeah. That's
Yeah.
yeah. When you start using filters and whatnot, you're not always sure what it did. So I'm adding more white, And then here's a dark vignetting. So I'm playing with the vignetting now, and just to see what what looks better or whatever. But this is the original. But no, I played with it a little bit. Give it a little bit more texture, take some away. I tried a little bit of clarity. Uh, I tried some contrast. And like everything I tried kind of like gave it a different look, but I can't say that it popped and says, oh, this really sort of hits me as a more effective or less effective, etc. So very
Thank you.
successful shot, very well done. I mean, there's the top of this building is missing, but I don't care. I mean, it's all about the horse, and I'm not worried about the building and some perspective and so on and so forth.
Thanks.
So, and since we were talking about this, just out of curiosity, this is a situation where, you know, I don't think it works. I think I'd rather see the horses heading left to right, uh, as they were originally, and there's just enough space in front of the horse that they've got a place to go. One of the things that's not good is when you've got boats, planes, horses, things moving, is you never want to have it so it's just about to leave the frame. You always want to leave a little bit of blank space in front of things that are moving or looking out towards the edge of the frame. So let's you've got just enough there to make it work. All right, another lovely abstract, and what I like about this one is the horizontals. It gives it more impact. Up and down was symmetrical. This has a little bit more impact. Makes it more dynamic. The color treatment is nice. It gives it some visual sort of a nice visual treatment.
That's another double exposure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then then I rotated it in studio.
Okay, so you took it horizontal, but you chose to make it.
Yeah, because I had
Diagonal.
I was playing with double exposure stuff, and so I thought, well,
Yeah.
just to be different, I'm gonna put it on this one on
Yeah.
a diagonal. Like I took it horizontal, but I
Mhm.
edited it.
Yeah, well,
It did.
and I think your intuition led you in the right direction. What I really like is the way this tree in the center is connected, and it connects the top. Whoops! It connects the top to the bottom. Had you been a little bit out of register and you had one tree going up and another tree going down, I think something would have been missing. But somehow you connected these trees, and it just ties them together, and then you see this tree reaching out and this tree reaching out, and so if they were all like this one, then I think it would have been less successful. Somehow this tree tying them together, this tree tying them together, and then this one through the center makes it very, very powerful. And I wouldn't play with the coloring or the texture or whatever. I mean, you can see if it would look better in black and white, and you can play with it in a lot of different ways. But I think it's got very good visual impact just as is.
Would you call that fine art? Like I never know what fine art means.
I don't know that there is an official definition. Maybe we should have a Chat GPT question. But I think anything which is deemed to be artistic or just captures the viewer's imagination, I think qualifies. I mean, it falls into an abstract category of sorts.
I don't know if anybody knows Ringworld. Like I was thinking, and there was another show where it had, as it was a sci-fi show where it showed two worlds that were touching each other.
Oh yeah.
Like they were coming into. Anyways, that's what this reminded. Doing this double exposure stuff with the flipped camera, it kind of reminded me of that too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So another nice landscape. Um, this jutting out of this jutting island or peninsula or whatever coming off the left hand side just draws my picture, my eye in, and then it leads me to this white space, and it leads me up to the trees and the forest, etc. So I mean, it's horizontally done, which gives it a restful state. Typically, if you photograph something horizontally, it looks more restful, more at peace, and anything that's shot vertically tends to have a little bit more impact, a little bit more emphasis, a little bit more drama. So I mean, that's part of what you want to think of when you're organizing your images. Here, once I get into the image and I start looking at it, then my eye starts to wander. I look at the trees, I look at the far bank, I look at the near bank, I look at this, looks like a fall type tree, orange tree at the end here, and I have to ask myself, where is my eye supposed to land? What am I trying to bring across? So part of the challenge here is what's the visual resting point, and where are we trying to go? What caught your eye here, Cole?
Actually, on the right, very right, the yellow patch of trees.
In the top left?
Yeah, yeah, right here, there, yeah.
Yeah.
The problem I have is I was on the bridge. Unless I go to all the way to the left to change the viewpoint.
Right.
But that is not. Then the thing in the middle is completely different.
Yeah.
So I look at it as I lost the
Okay.
the focus, in fact. But it is to me like a geometric diagonal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I use this tree as a possible focal point, and I played with it a little bit. And so I popped the colors on that tree,
Mhm.
and I brightened some of this white over here to kind of make it sort of like a diagonal line pointing to that tree. And so I ended up just playing with it a little bit just to give it a little bit more of a pop.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what I did with it. I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
do any cropping. You've got a good foreground, you've got middle ground and background there. So I didn't change that, but I did do a little bit of dodging and burning. So I played with it.
makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
So you see this area here, I made extra white, and then I darkened the sky a little bit, and then I darkened the bottom so that the emphasis was in the center. Your eye doesn't rest in the bottom; it's a little darker. The sky's a little bit darker, and then there's a lot of white area in the middle here, and the tree has been made a little bit more orangey, so that the emphasis is
On the middle.
yeah, the emphasis is on the middle, and my eyes gravitates to that bright tree in the far right.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's very helpful.
So
Because I think I tried these two images, one for the sky, one for the bottom. I want your comment, feedback for this.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just three masks, right? There's a mask of the sky, select sky. There's a linear gradient at the bottom, and then there's some hand painted dodging and burning going on.
Definitely, I will
Yeah.
try this.
Yeah.
It's very pleasing now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. All right. Cool car. Now I don't see a logo or anything on it, so I don't know what it is. So somebody who knows cars might be able to comment. I couldn't tell. But certainly a neat car on the street. The color red certainly pops. In this case, the license plate looks like it's been cleaned up, and this bright sun patch, a little distracting, but at the same time it gives it a punch to the image. So I mean, wasn't sure how to go about improving this a little bit. Again, anything that's vertical has more impact. I did want to straighten it a little bit, so I did kind of just bring it and straighten it a little bit more. I went and grabbed the background and come on. All right, so I went, made the background just a little bit darker, tried to, remove some of the depth of field, got some of the texture and sharpness, rid of the background. And then I think I just played with the red is high saturation. I just desaturated a little bit, but then added back some vibrance just to give it a bit of a, keep the red but not overly saturated red. So I think this is kind of where I ended up. There we go. That's my final piece of work. And yeah, I mean, I was just trying to make the emphasis on the car and de-emphasize some of the background a little bit. You know, ideally, you could have had a little bit more space on the edge of the car here. You know, like actually there was a little bit of room here. So when it was shot, it just the perspective was off. When I straightened it, I lost a little bit of the space on the edge. So you have a risk when you straighten something of losing a bit on the edge. So I mean, I could always bring it in just to make it even. And then I probably don't need that foreground. I could probably do that. It's a little tight on the crop, but it still gets the car across. All right. This is super sharp, super crisp. It's an amazing macro. So, I mean, you know, I can't zoom in more. This is 100%. So it wasn't sent to me in high resolution. This is the biggest it goes. In fact, that's slightly enlarged. But anyways, I can still see that it's really nice. It's separated from the background. The people who are into nature and macro photography will ask you, you know, like, is the wing sharp enough? But to me, the body and the body hair and the eyes are super crisp. And if this wing span comes out any decent amount, you would never get that wing sharp without doing something called focus stacking, where you focus on the tip of the wing, then the center of the wing, then the edge of the wing, then the body, and then you start stacking a bunch of images together, and that's a very specialized technique. But even though the insect is sharp, the leaf is soft enough that it's not distracting. There's something's happening with the leg here. It's not super sharp. It's kind of blending in with the leaf, but presumably what's happening is the tip of the leaf is coming up a little bit, and it's causing some diffraction or diffusion. So anyways, it's really neat. I don't know that I'd change a whole bunch here. I mean,
Is the purple line an aberration that can be removed?
Purple line. Where are we?
Under the tail there. Yeah.
This area over here.
Yeah.
I think that's the wing, which is out of focus. I think that's the way. If you were to think of this in 3 dimensions, I think that wing's coming towards the camera, almost the width of the butterfly or the width of that housefly or whatever the heck it is. And,
Okay, yeah.
and it's gotten out of focus because it's so close. So one possibility is here is you can come in a little bit more so you don't have that background. But I think the reason I cropped it off is this is one of the ones that I did end up flipping because my eye tends to come in, see the subject, and then my eye continues to follow down and leads me out of the picture. So in this particular situation, if you flip it, you end up with, you know, your eye comes in, follows it up, hits the insect, and then to stop my eye from finding too much more to visit, I ended up cropping it just a little bit. And so I ended up with this image.
Aha, nice. I like it. I like it better flipped.
It's worth trying sometimes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good example
It
again.
just doesn't work when there's writing in the picture.
Right.
Yeah, so somebody said, good patience waiting out the fly. Yeah, I don't know. Was it glued to the fly paper or something?
I think I was lucky that it was motionless
Yeah.
and it just stayed there. Sometimes you luck out.
Yeah, I'll say. And what did you shoot this? 105. So this is your 105 macro?
Yes.
Yeah, very
Yes.
nice.
Thanks.
Yeah. And 1/1250th f3.8. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So even at 3.8, you got amazing detail. So that's I would have been tempted to shoot this with a higher depth of field, but then that wing might have been sharper. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's crisp as it is. And did you have room to 3.8? So you could have gone higher, and then your ISO is 140, so you could have gone higher on your ISO as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Very nice here. I mean, this is kind of like almost playing peekaboo, so it's got a little bit of mystery, which is kind of neat. So it's not the horse's muzzle is not over the fence, but hiding behind it, and there's enough happening between the fence lines to see that the rest of the horse is there. It's not one of these situations where it's like now it's just the eyes and the rest of the horse is missing. So I don't mind that. Kind of just enough of the horse there to give it some context. It's not just floating above the fence. It's grounded a little bit more. So this one I found a little bit washed out. It would have been nice to give it a little bit more. If you're looking for a place to start, you can always hit the auto button in Lightroom, and it will give you what it thinks is the right exposure. And it's a little bit better, but still I think I'd like a little bit more texture, darken the horse a little bit more. I think that's giving me a little bit more, and give it a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity, right about something like that, type of thing. And then I'm looking at this thing here that's kind of distracting, and so this is, get rid of that. And when it doesn't quite line up like this, it's sort of lined up and not. You can kind of see it's not. I just hit my arrow button. I'm going the wrong way. I'll hit the arrow in the other direction. And right there. So just give it a nudge sometimes. So that's kind of what I did. Let me just... Okay, I ended up darkening it even more. So I played with it a little bit and ended up with something along these lines. So I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, but I mean, I was trying to give the horse a little bit more dimension, a little depth, a little more, there's some vibrance here that wasn't there before. That might be even too much vibrance. I might bring it down a bit. We have a tendency to overdo things.
That is better with the more color.
Yeah, I
Thinking.
mean, I just, to me, and an animal tends to have impact and whatever, so I just tried that. And then here's one that doesn't have a lot of color, but I love it. So what's neat about this is it almost gives you kind of a blizzardy type thing. Oh, somebody wants to speak? Sheila.
No, I don't. Sorry, I
Oh.
was trying to put that I really like this image in the chat, and I must have put some. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so yeah, so the whiteness here, the starkness of it, the fact that the trees aren't, really crisp. You could take this image and like darken the trees and give them more texture and stuff like that. But washed out like this, you're almost like you feel like you're looking through fog. And so it's got a mood to it that I really like. And I also, as my eye travels through the image, all of a sudden, pop, there's a man in the picture or a person in the picture. And so you've got this visual resting point. Whoops, why do I keep doing that? You've got this visual resting point. Come on, why? Oh, I'm still in, and there we go. That somebody's walking or something over there, but it's just enough to give you that impression of there's something happening in the photo. There's a little bit of a story there. It's not just a pure landscape. So I think this is a very successful image. Can you play with it a little bit? I mean, the format is great for posting online and that kind of stuff. It's split in the middle, and it's not like a reflection. So very often something that is split in the middle is kind of best done in the middle if it's a reflection. I think I ended up cropping it a little bit off the bottom, and just to give it a little bit more of a 1/3, 2/3 type look. But I mean, it's up to you, how much you want to take off. But there's not a whole lot I would do here, and I did play with it in a couple of different ways to play with the exposure a little bit more, wash it out a little bit more, try a little bit of contrast. But I mean, the goal here is don't be satisfied with a click, look at it and go, oh, cool, did a good job, pat myself on the back. Ask yourself, as an artist, what else can you do to make that picture, even more punchier, even more dramatic. So, hopefully this is, giving you a chance to experiment with some of those types of things. And I think that was our last image. So how about question and answer? Spontaneous burst of silence.
Mike, did you change your workflow
Mm-hmm.
when the new masks were introduced last year? That was a game changer.
Yeah, it definitely was. Let's see. So my workflow, depending on what you mean by that, didn't change. So I still go through all my photos and just assign them a number from 1 to 5, depending on whether they're like garbage or wow, this goes in my portfolio. Then the next thing I do is I just take the 4s and 5s, and I don't bother editing all the others. I take the 4s and 5s and I go through them again, and I do a very fast, very, very fast initial edit. And then I share those with my client or my model or whatever, and I say, here's some of the work from our portfolio, from our shoot, and they choose their favorites. They come back to me, and then I go through detail edits, and that's when I start using masking, and I use some of the features of the masking to further add dimension to the subject, to separate the subject from the background, to add more punch to the sky. And I use all of the filters and the types of things that we were doing tonight to improve my photo and recrop it and so on and so forth. So I don't spend a lot of time before I share my images with my clients, because I'd be spending way too much time working on things that they don't even like. And sometimes I love the picture and I think this is great, and they look at it and go, nah, I don't like my hair, and I'm gone, oh, well, okay, what can I say? But the masking tools are super powerful, and I mean, if anything changed in my workflow, it's even less has to go to Photoshop now. I can do so much in Lightroom that I go to Photoshop for, textures, overlays, texture overlays for things like liquefy, and I don't know what else I do in Photoshop. Sometimes certain special Photoshop actions that I've bought that do certain things, but there's so many presets in Lightroom. I mean, in my Lightroom, the number of presets I have down here is it just goes on, and so I've got so many different presets, and I just I would go through these, and this is another thing I do sometimes. So I just hover over this thing and I just go through and I say, is there anything here that just pops out at me and just gives this photo a different feel, a different look? And it just gives me some ideas sometimes, and I go, oh, well, this is kind of interesting, but it's not quite what I want, and so it gives me a starting point for playing around with it a little bit more. Yeah, so I got tons of these things that are around. See, that's very high contrast. That's very interesting. I don't like what's happening on the left-hand side there, but yeah. So, anyways.
I like your idea of numbering as well, because it would allow me to get rid of stuff that I really shouldn't be looking at anyway.
So the numbering comes in handy in two ways. Number one, I can get rid of certain pictures right away. Anything which is a 1, the flash didn't go off. I clicked my camera as I was pointing it at my shoe. Like they're garbage. Get rid of those. A 2 is I probably can't use this, but I might need it. So a good example is I'm shooting a wedding, and there's 5 people in front of me, in a group shot, and in that group shot, one person's got their eyes closed, or some kid's got his finger up his nose, or whatever. So I can't use that photo. But I may have another group shot where the bride and groom say, "I really like this photo, but Aunt Bessie, not the best expression. Is there another photo of Aunt Bessie where you could kind of do a little Photoshop magic?" And so I can go back to my twos, and I'm not going to grab the kid with their finger up their nose, but Aunt Bessie may have a really good expression. I can steal that and use it. So until I'm finished with the job, I keep all my twos. Threes they're okay. I mean, I could probably share those with the client, but I mean, I've taken so many that are very similar. I'm going to have some of those threes are going to be fours. And so I'm not going to bother sharing the threes, and then the fours and fives I share with the client. If I don't have enough fours and fives because I promised them 100 pictures, I'll go back through my threes and I'll promote some of them, that type of thing. Anyway, so back to the archiving you were talking about. So ones I get rid of right away. 2 I get rid of at the end of the job. 3 I hang on to for a while. And that might be a year or 2 or 3, until when I start running out of disk space. Then I ask Lightroom, show me all pictures that are 3 years old and are rated at a level 3. And I can just go poof, and they're gone. Okay, so that's a way of claiming
very good.
space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can reach very easily into something that's 3 years old and just delete anything which was less than perfect. And then if I really, really ran out of space and I wanted to, I could go back and say delete all the 4s, but I have yet to do that. I just buy more disk space.
Geez,
Mine,
I'm not using Lightroom to its capacity for sure. It's good
And that
tips.
could be another session we do is like how to organize your Lightroom catalog for best efficiency, and making sure you've got good backups, and making sure you're importing things wisely, etc. So I heard someone else ask a question.
yeah, I was just wondering if you could go back to that last picture, because when we were playing with it, then I was thinking, what if you cropped? So see the space in between the 2 trees, sort of on the right? So
Yeah.
what if you cropped it so that that space, so you pulled it in so that it was,
How far?
keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So just keep going. Okay, stop.
Yeah.
Okay, now pull up the bottom. Do your rule of thirds now and pull down the top.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if all of a sudden the guy becomes a little more.
Yeah. I would agree. It's now less about the landscape and more about the guy.
Yeah.
Or the person, whatever they are. Yeah, but that's up to the maker, right? But this
Yeah.
definitely brings attention to the person. Actually, there's a little tree here that's bugging me. I'm gonna do a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, and in fact, now that I'm looking at it, my rule of thirds isn't really there. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd like that a bit better. No, not quite. Right there.
Yeah, and then maybe you'd want to maybe pop the trees a little more. It's a different picture, right?
Yeah,
I like it though. It brings more of the trees into the image.
yeah.
I like it.
But now the picture has a totally different mood.
Yes, absolutely. And that's
I
why.
would I would go the other way. I would do a long panorama.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's that's the kind of stuff I want you guys to walk away with is understand that there's no right or wrong here. It's a matter of doing what artistically gets your message across and conveys to the viewer what you wanted them to feel, what you wanted them to see. So on that note, folks, I think we should wrap it up. Thank you all for your time, your attention, and I look forward to seeing you all at future meetups when I'm back on my feet.
Thank you very much, Mike. This has been very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you very
most welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.